Rudy Giuliani was back in court on Thursday to answer questions from U.S. District Judge Louis Lyman about why in the hell he hasn't turned over his assets, in spite of the fact that Lyman ordered him to turn over all of his assets to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss by October 29th. And it turns out Giuliani just hasn't done it. In fact, the judge also brought up during this hearing where he blasted the hell out of both Giuliani and his lawyer, he wanted to know why Giuliani rolled up to vote in Florida in a vintage Mercedes-Benz that was ordered to be turned over to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the women he defamed. And you're out there flaunting it by driving that car to go and vote 2 days prior to this hearing. The judge was pissed. And he had every right to be pissed off. Because here's what happened. On October 29th, the day that these assets were supposed to be officially turned over to Freeman and Moss, that was the deadline. October 29th, there were reports of multiple moving trucks outside of Giuliani's Manhattan apartment, which is also now property of Freeman and Moss. So at the time, and I think I even mentioned this in a segment, everybody thought, oh boy, they're here and they're taking all Giuliani's stuff. That's what was believed. But as we found out in the hearing on Thursday, that's not what those moving trucks were for. Those were Giuliani's moving trucks. And he was removing his assets and hiding them, according to his own lawyer, in a storage facility. But the lawyer, Kenneth Caruso, told the judge, he's like, Judge, hey, listen, yeah, we moved it all to a storage facility because we got to give them the apartment. And that actually kind of makes sense, except that you also had to give them the property. So all you had to do really was just toss them the keys, leave the stuff there because it's theirs, right? But he told the judge, Giuliani does not have access to this. He has no control over it. Don't worry about it. And that's when the judge warned the lawyer, consider your words, suggesting that it could end up in a contempt hearing for your client. Consider your words. When a lawyer has to be warned, consider your words, you've lost. And I think at this point, Judge Lyman is going to be left with very few options other than to hold a contempt hearing for Rudy Giuliani. Honestly, that's what the Thursday hearing should have been. Because he had a deadline. You gave him a firm date. October 29th is the drop dead date for you to turn all this over. And then you have a hearing on November 7th and you're like, I may have to do contempt because you haven't done it. No, the November 7th hearing should have been the contempt hearing. Like, that's what that should have been. Because he didn't do what he was ordered by a court to do by the date the court ordered him to do it. So why are you threatening contempt instead of just, doing it? In another tense moment, Caruso, again, Giuliani's lawyer, called it vindictive that Giuliani must turn over a watch that's an heirloom previously owned by his grandfather. The judge raised his voice saying, "Oh, come on," before pointing to other cases he hears regularly, such as people who run bodegas and short their employees' wages. If they have a debt, the judge says, they have to pay the debt. It doesn't matter if it's an heirloom. And here's the thing about the watch. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss already told the judge, listen, it's an heirloom. He can keep it. We don't want the watch. He can keep it. It's an heirloom. We're not vindictive people. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss are good, genuinely good-hearted people. And even though what this man did to them destroyed their lives, they were still willing to be helpful to him and compassionate and let him keep his grandfather's watch. That's more compassion than I would ever have, I think. And then when the issue of the car was brought up, hey, he rode in this car to go vote. The car is supposed to be their property. And Caruso goes, well, Judge, let me tell you, even though it's a vintage Mercedes-Benz, a collectible, it's worth less than $4,000. So by law, if it's under $4,000, we don't have to turn that over. Less than $4,000 for a vintage Mercedes-Benz that obviously still runs, right? Bullcrap. To me, it seems like they are trying to undervalue some of Giuliani's assets so that he doesn't have to turn them over. But I can promise you that's not gonna fly. Giuliani made this mess himself. His lawyer is not going to get him out of it, and if anything, his lawyer is going to have to defend him in a contempt hearing, hopefully coming up very soon. Thanks for watching today, everybody, and don't forget, if you're not already, please do subscribe to this channel. We have fresh content going up every single day, and I would really hate for you to miss out on that. And speaking of missing out, if you're not following me across all other social media outlets, then get on it! You can follow the links in the description of this video.